That's why so many private practice therapists don't want to take insurance, because it's a fucking nightmare. All right, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back. We are really hitting you with some high octane content today. We're talking about insurance. I have seen a couple requests to talk about this, probably because health insurance in the United States is an absolute bloodbath. It's very difficult to understand. Personally, I think that they do this on purpose so that they can steal our money. That's neither here nor there. I'm going to talk about health insurance today and try to clarify some of the differences between paying for therapy with your health insurance benefits or paying for therapy out of pocket. We're also going to talk a little bit about why private practice therapists especially tend to not want to accept insurance benefits. So if you are ready to be bored, let's talk about it. Okay, so when we talk about the difference between health insurance and self-pay, or like paying out of pocket, it's very important to understand what that means. First of all, I think most of us know or like have some concept of what health insurance is. Typically, this is like a health insurance policy that is paid for or provided by your workplace. This varies wildly from person to person, to company. I have yet to see two identical insurance plans because there's just a lot of different things. There's different tiers, there's different plans, and usually the more you pay in at a monthly premium, the less that you have to pay for services and deductibles and copays and all of that stuff. But all of that to say that your health insurance, first of all, is something that I personally cannot speak to. A, because I don't have your health insurance information, but B, because even if I did, that policy is subject to change. So the best thing that you can do if you want to be a conscientious consumer and to be well informed about your benefits is to call or email or use the virtual like online chat thing, but communicate with your health insurance company because they are the people who have all of the information. I am here to talk about health insurance in a very broad way and kind of give you guys some background information just generally as it relates to therapy. When we talk about health insurance, there are some key terms that we need to understand. We're going to have a little vocab lesson. So the first word that we're going to talk about is deductible. A deductible is a set amount of money that typically you have to pay before your health insurance benefits will like kick in. So when we're talking about therapy, typically, if you have a deductible, you are responsible for paying for therapy out of pocket at the full price until you have paid the amount of money that your deductible is, and then your rate per session will go down. This amount for your deductible, again, varies wildly. Some people it's a couple $100, some people it's several $1,000s. This also depends on the type of plan you have because, for example, if you are a dependent and your mom and dad or mom and mom or whoever are the carriers of the health insurance policy, you probably have a family plan, which means that you might have a family deductible. Family deductibles are usually very high. So, like I said, the amount of money that your deductible is varies, but usually the way that this works is, say your deductible is like $200. Before my amount of money that I pay my therapist every session can go down, I have to pay the full out-of-pocket rate. And again, this varies a lot. The amount of money that your therapist charges per session will be different based on which therapist you're seeing and where you live and all of these different factors, but each health insurance company has a contracted rate that they agree to pay to providers. For therapists, again, this varies depending on the area that you live in, what your therapist's particular rates are. That's very much on a case-by-case basis. So this, again, is like up for interpretation. Just understand that that amount of money will change. But let's say your therapist charges $100 out of pocket and the insurance company agrees to pay $100. If you have not met your deductible yet, then you have to pay that $100 per session until you have met your deductible. So if you have a $200 deductible, you pay out of pocket for 2 sessions, you've met your deductible, and then that amount will go back down to whatever your copay is. And a copay is another insurance term that we need to talk about. So copay or co-insurance refers to the amount of money that you pay out of pocket for a particular service. So like if you go to your primary care doctor and you pay a copay, typically this is a pretty low amount. This is like the $20, $50, $10, whatever. That amount of money is reflective of a percentage typically. Not always, but usually this is how it works. And so when we're talking about therapy, if again, we'll use the example of $100 because it's easy to do percentages with. If your insurance company agrees to pay your therapist $100 per session and your copay is 20% of the overall amount, you pay $20 and then your therapist submits the claim and the insurance company reimburses the therapist for the additional $80, making $100 in total. Again, this amount changes. Sometimes your copay is subject to a deductible and sometimes it is not. Again, this depends on your insurance company, your policy, all of your individual details. So like for some people, they have to pay that deductible before their copay will go back down to the $20. Some people, your copay for therapy is always $20 no matter what. Sometimes it's just a set amount of money that your insurance company is like pulled out of their butts. I don't know. It's very, very up in the air and very different. Again, if you have specific questions about your policy, I'm telling you, you got to call them. I know that calling is very like scary and uncomfortable. There are lots of different ways that you can communicate with them. So I encourage you to utilize that resource if you have questions. So deductibles and copays are like the two sort of major players when we talk about paying for therapy with health insurance. The reason that this is important to talk about is because not all therapists accept all insurance plans. Each insurance company has different rates that they agree to pay therapists. And so like Cigna, for example, at least in my experience, doesn't have a very high payout. And so if you as a therapist are not being compensated fairly for the work that you're doing, we really don't want to take that money. Or I don't want to fill my caseload with people who have that particular insurance, because then I'm not making very much money and I got to pay off my student loans, y'all. So like we're trying to pay my bills. So this again is important to talk about, because if you are wanting to use your insurance benefits to pay for therapy, I really, really, really want to encourage you to check that your therapist takes it beforehand. This is not, embarrassing. This is not being cheap. You are not being like tacky by asking this question. You have to know whether your insurance will pay for it before you go. Because the thing is that if you go, you receive those services, you sit for that session, and you find out that your insurance company doesn't cover those benefits, you are still responsible for the cost of that session. Those services have already been rendered, and so you can't not pay that. I mean, you can, but like, that's not very nice. Please don't do that to people. So again, it's not tacky, it's not weird, it's not embarrassing to ask this question beforehand and to make sure that you have some kind of understanding of what you're gonna pay before you sit down and have those services rendered. My policy for how I run insurance stuff is that I wanna check and I wanna know what the copay is, what the deductible is. I want the full rundown of the benefits. A, so that I can communicate that to my client, but B, so that everybody is on the same page about what amount of money you're gonna owe me when that session is over. So please don't be afraid to ask. If your therapist does not ask for this information, I would encourage you to offer that up and to say, hey, it's really important to me to know, can you check my benefits before I come in for my appointment? Again, not tacky, not weird. It is totally okay for you to want to be an informed and conscientious consumer. The other thing about insurance that's important to know is that your deductible, your copay, the amount of money that you owe at each session, all of this is liable to change at a moment's notice. This is the thing about paying for therapy with your insurance benefits, is that they can decide that all of a sudden they don't want to pay for something, or that there's a fee adjustment and you now owe money on a session that you had like 3 weeks ago. Sometimes the insurance company will just show up and say, actually, we made a mistake. We should not have paid you, the therapist, for these sessions, so we're taking our money back. Sometimes that means that your therapist will say, yes, hi, hello, I have now not received compensation for these sessions, so I have to collect it from you. This sucks. This is a shitty situation all the way around, because clients don't want to feel like they are, on the hook for money that they already paid you. Therapists don't want to be the people who have to come after you for money. Insurance companies don't really give a fuck, honestly, because they're making their money and they're like really oppressing us all, and this is why we really need Medicare for all. However, the key takeaway here is that insurance benefits do change. Typically, we see this happen around the first of the year. So when deductibles reset is usually around January 1st. Sometimes this is different. If your plan is purchased through like a different place and your deductible resets based on when you enrolled in the insurance, it can reset like the middle of the fucking year or whatever. But typically we see this happen around the first of the year. So your deductible will reset, and this is when people start to owe that full amount per session until we've met the deductible. But, again, sometimes this changes like out of the blue. Sometimes a fee adjustment is basically when the insurance company says the amount that we paid you was wrong, and so we're adjusting it either in your favor or not in your favor. That's why so many private practice therapists don't want to take insurance, because it's a fucking nightmare. It's difficult because, again, therapists don't want to be the people who are running after you and like chasing you down for our money. Therapists also really don't want to be doing the billing. And so we usually have to hire a person whose job it is to do the billing, which is expensive, it's time consuming, it's irritating, it's so frustrating. It's just not, again, it's not fun all the way around. Nobody enjoys this process. So the way that a lot of therapists have worked around this and simplified is by charging out of pocket. And so saying, I don't accept any insurance benefits at all. I charge a flat rate out of pocket, and this is the amount of money that you owe me every session. The thing about this that's hard is that it's usually more expensive. So people who, charge $200 out of pocket, typically their clients are only people who are, independently wealthy and can afford to blow $1,000 a month on therapy. This is not a very common experience for most people. And so it's kind of hard because then as therapists, like, our job is inherently political, and it's important for us to acknowledge how oppression and injustice impact our services. And so if we're only catering to like the elite, then, we're missing out on a whole segment of the population. But also, insurance fucking sucks. And it's hard because while paying out of pocket can be prohibitively expensive, it is nice to know that your amount that you owe at every session is the same. No matter what, it does not change unless your therapist increases or decreases their rate, in which case they are obligated to give you advance notice of this. But again, typically this is a more predictable method because we don't have a third party in here dictating what's allowed, what's not allowed, the amount of money that's correct or not correct, blah, blah, blah. And if your therapist accepts sliding fee scales, that amount of money can potentially go down. The other thing with insurance rates is that we can't negotiate those with you. We have signed a contract as therapists saying that we agree to accept this amount of money from the insurance company. So I can't tell you, don't worry about it, don't pay your copay, I'll just collect the money from the insurance company. We're not allowed to do that. So I can't give you a discount. With out-of-pocket rates, a sliding fee scale is like essentially a way for me to give you a discount. So let's say I charge $200 out of pocket. I don't do that, by the way, that's fucking wild. But let's say that I did, and I have a sliding fee scale based on your income, and you're a person who makes $20,000 a year. I have a little table that tells me your out-of-pocket rate is this person's household income is this much, and so you slide your total amount down this little like table thing, and that tells me what your copay would be, which is typically less than the full amount. So this is a really useful tool in helping us serve those people who do really need the services but just aren't independently wealthy. Again, the struggle with this is that still, even with a sliding fee scale, fees can be pretty high, and you don't have that like sort of benefit of like, if you pay in now, then it will be less money later. It's just that same amount for the whole time, and so it can be more expensive that way too. So this is a lot of information. I hope that this made sense to you guys. If you guys have questions, comments, or concerns, please put them in the comments. Again, as a reminder, I cannot answer specific questions about your insurance. I cannot answer questions about the insurance experiences that I've had with my clients because that's illegal, but I will do my best to give you guys some sort of broad, like fact-based information in the comments if you have questions. That said, if you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. I promise we have more interesting things around, so if you want to watch some more fun stuff, please go do that. And I would love to have you stay and be part of our little community here. And then share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.